Okay, well, thank you everybody for coming along today. I'm really pleased for a whole set of reasons, some of which I'll outline in a second, but I'm really pleased to be able to welcome Professor Sylvia Kroll from the Catholic University of Applied Science in Berlin. Part of the reason I'm so pleased is I have a relationship with that particular university that goes back to 2007. And since I've been here in Portsmouth, we've begun to develop the links between the two universities. So what you may know from the induction week is that the last 2 years, students from the University of Portsmouth have gone to the Catholic University to take part in the summer school, which was a new development, I think, 2 years ago. And it's quite unusual for British students who, sadly, often don't speak another language, to get the opportunity to go and take part in something. And the International Summer School is run in English. So I go to the Catholic University quite regularly, probably once a year at least, and I'm really pleased that Sylvia has come to visit us, because she's the first academic. We have actually had another member of staff who came. We had an exchange in the library, but Sylvia's the first academic to come and visit. So I'll be quiet now. I will just say that Sylvia is doing this in a second language, which is a real challenge. Excuse me. It's a real challenge to do that, having done that myself. Sylvia, you do have language support in the room with me and with the two German students who both speak English as well, so we will help you out if you do get a bit stuck. Certainly the students help me when I do lectures and meetings in Berlin. So if I hand over to you, maybe you can introduce yourself.
Okay. Thank you, John. Thank you all here. And yes, it will be very hard for me to speak in English, but I will try it. And first of all, I'd like to say thank you for coming to this meeting and giving me this opportunity to come and exchange experiences and ideas with you, and so explore what we can do together. Before beginning, firstly, I'd like to give you some background information about what I've done and do. My initial training was as a worker in kindergartens and a house parent in care homes. I went on to study psychology and focus on clinical development psychology. After my studies, I worked as a counselor and therapist and as a teacher. Then the wall came down. I will remember Germany. Germany was a country with a big border, East and West Germany. And I lived in East Germany, the name GDR, German Democratic Republic. And in 1989, it was a special situation, a special time. I think a world time, because the wall came down. And now we had a lot of opportunities. So a lot of opportunities to build our country. I was one of the co-founders of our university, yes. And now I was also able to make my PD. And my focus of the area of social work, and my focus as psychological knowledgeness, now I wanted to go more in the perspective of social work. My aim is to give knowledge and skills to find out what is the best way to help children and their families, with ways like social diagnostic, abilities diagnostic, resources diagnostic, and to transfer or transfer what has been learned into help action, or what is the implementing of the knowledge and skills in concrete practice. Yes, and my title is Professor of the Theory and Practice of Social Work, specializing in help for children and youth and their families. At the same time, I am the head of our practice department, but I think that is another doing than here in Portsmouth. Now I'm going to give you a brief talk about the title Abused Children in Family and Care Settings from the Perspective of Germany. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do that, but I will try it. Please feel free ask any question, but please at the end. And do remember, my English is very bad, so I would be grateful if you would speak slowly and clearly. Thank you. I have made an overview, a kind of summary of my topic. Perhaps you will look, or I think first you will hear. Today, my first point, the public discussion in German society regarding sexual abuse. In January 2010, a scream went through our country. The leader of the famous college in Berlin, the Canisius College, the College of the Order of Jesuits, went public and claimed that in its school, through its teachers, including Catholic priests, there had been long-term child abuse. What was most shocking about this was that the abbot and his council had known about this abuse, but they ignored it and took no action. We know the same from the Irish report on abuse. I don't know who knows? Okay. This claim was a catalyst for an avalanche of similar accusations. Suddenly, people came forward with reports of abuse in sports clubs, summer camps, care settings like care homes and foster care, schools and other communities. At the center of this report was another famous school which had founded and practiced a special kind of pedagogy, the so-called reform pedagogy. Currently, there is a discussion, because in last Sunday we had a national election, currently there is a discussion about the position of the Green Party in the 80s. There was a group which called for free sexuality between adults and children and demanded the abolition of the law which stated that sex between an adult and a child is a criminal act. This is the situation. Society and government were in uproar over all this. So a government program was passed in a record time. Really, I think, have politicians reacted so fast? Only 1 month later of the claim from Canisius College, only 1 month later, the government created the position of the independent representative responsible for dealing with sexual abuse. And this position still exists today. First of all, so-called roundtable was set up, which include people representative of government, those working with children, and scientists and victims. The title was The Round Table of Child Abuse in Relationships of Dependency and Special Influence in Private and in Public Facilities and in Informal Situations. There were 60 members, and this was headed by the Departmental Minister for the Family. The aims were to find out what needed to be done regarding interventions in areas of life, such as in life, in therapy and counseling, and how to prevent such behavior in education and elsewhere. Can you understand me? Okay. The essential task of the independent representative responsible includes setting up and running a nationwide telephone or online service for victims, perpetrators, and others. a confidential helpline for victims, an additionally help care system, and a lot more. Last year, the finished report of government was completed, and this year, the investigation report has been published with the scientific analysis of all reports on sexual abuse from victims and perpetrators and other people. I think it will be more interesting if I talk about the results of the investigation report, a book with more than 500 pages, written by the scientist group of the University of Ulm, and the scientist Jörg Fegert was in the chair. Now let me go to the results from this investigation report. From May 2010 to October 2011, more than 20,000 people called the hotline. 20,000 people in 1.5 years. And those just under a quarter were analyzed. Exactly 4,570 people. This is the greatest collection of information from the people concerned with sexual abuse in Germany, be it as victims or as perpetrators or as both victim and perpetrator. Now the first point, abuse within the family and in institutions. It seems people need time to be able to speak about abuse, of course. And there seems to be a difference between talking about abuse within the family and abuse in institutions. That's why. At first, when the hotline opened, there were more reports about institutional abuse, whereas 10 months later, there were more reports about domestic abuse. It seems significant that the government had launched a new initiative called Speaking Does Help. Males seem to have suffered more abuse in institutions, whereas females seem to have suffered more abuse within the family. The ratio of abuse reports was 2/3 male to 1/3 female in institutions, and 1/4 male to 3/4 female within the family. However, it should be borne in mind that more boys are taken into care in institutions than girls. In 2010 in Germany, the ratio was approximately 2/3 boys to 1/3 girls. One unexpected finding was that the biological father was more often named as a perpetrator than the stepfather. Other points. Level of incidence. Within the family, the abuse appears to be more frequent. 73% of those concerned reported about ritually recurrent abuse and more rarely about one or repeated abuse. In institutions, it was less frequent. 60 and 61% of those reported recurrent abuse. Another point, gravity. Concerning the abuse within the family, there were reports of attempted and actual penetration and additional physical and emotional maltreatment occurring with significant frequency. Consequences? The consequence of abuse which took place in a family setting seemed to be more serious than that which was inflicted in an institutional setting. Those abused within the family are more likely to suffer physical and emotional stress long term than those maltreated in an institution. This is due to the nature of the relationships This is also my experience as a counselor. This could be why it is more difficult to express concerns about the abuse suffered within the family than in institutions. Another point is the situation and consequence for performance and relationship. It is noteworthy that whilst those victims of abuse representatively have a higher school living level than those who were not abused, but later 15% of them reported problems with performance and as adults. They identify, for example, short memory, less power, and other. That is a psychological question to solve this. Furthermore, those abused as children may have difficulties forming and maintaining long-term personal relationships as adults. More of them live as single and divorced or in broken relationships in comparison with the whole or total population of Germany. Of those who were abused, 42% are single, 22% divorced or in broken relationships, and only 27% in marriage and 2% in a stable relationships without wedding. Thus, 20% of the concerned are reported to have problems with relationships and partnerships. But I think it will be not necessary to say on this place, that if you are abused, then the damage must not be permanent. And that this can become reality is also our responsibility or challenge as social worker. An exceptionally result, whilst, because I am a home parent in a care setting, whilst a great number of other results were very interesting. What I found particularly frightening was that more of the children in care setting, approximately 75% of them, that had been subject to sexual abuse. 17%, the 75% children in care setting.
Sorry, can you just say those percentages again? Can you just repeat those last bits, please?
From this,
those last ones.
75%.
Yeah, which was what?
Of 75% of.
75%
Children
of children which live in care setting has been experienced in sexual abuse.
Right, thank you. Yeah.
It is.
I thought I heard.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. This means we have an exceptionally important responsibility in our care settings, a special giving to live. But here we have a special problem in Germany. I don't know how is it in United Kingdom, because our law of child and youth care states that the children should remain in care settings for a short time, and the earliest possible return to their family is the aim. However, this doesn't take into account that traumatized children need time to develop and become able to express their experiences of abuse. At the same time, our focus is more on the institutions and their procedures and practice, and less on the individual child and their needs. We are vigilant that there are no opportunities for dangers of abuse. For example, all members of staff in a care setting, require a certificate from the police that states they have never been convicted as a perpetrator. Now, I think we have to see how we can combine our focus on the institutions with the needs of the individual and the family. How can we combine this different perspective? That, I think, is my question. And that's why my thesis, central subjects in context of sexual abuse. First, what we want to have, like aims. Transparency, okay, I think now we are in progress. What to do, that is the question. Challenge, truth, clarity, understanding, recognition, behavior. And second, how to achieve that. Realization, like ways. Dealing with sexual abuse, including victims and perpetrators, help and care, prevention of abuse, reaction to suspected and alleged and actual abuse. That are many, many questions, and so I'd like to so open the discussion.
Okay, thank you very, very much. That was extremely interesting. I just want to ask if you have a question. I mean, I have a couple of questions here, but I'm sure other people in the room do. When you have a question, could you briefly introduce yourself, say who you are, and what you're studying or what your role is? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, you know, I'm Terry. Or did
Please,
you know what I'm doing?
please clearly, yeah, please slowly.
My question is around the statistics about the number of children experiencing sexual abuse who are in care in Germany. What's the main reason people come into care?
Yes.
How does that break down in terms of how many people are abused at the point they come in?
Yes, I think here in Germany we have another principle. In care setting, mostly young people, the age is mostly 6 years, because earlier, mostly in foster care, this is also a care setting. You mean care setting hall or care setting home?
At the point they're coming in, whether they go to foster care or to, what's the reason? Is it neglect, physical abuse, sexual abuse?
Neglect is the mostly reason.
I just wondered if you knew what proportion were coming into care because of sexual abuse.
Yes, often disabilities in behavior, and we know in the development that the most critical behavior, it will be in the change, in the overchange in the school. That is mostly.
Is that the predominant reason?
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yes, because often the parents come and say, we don't know, what can we do?
Right.
Please help me. And so they go in our department is the youth department, and we have a special law, so it's a social, we like.
Just very briefly, the legislation in Germany is structured differently. So there is this overarching Sozialgesetzbuch, which is the social law book, or social law code. Yeah. So it's a civic law system, basically. Yes. And within that overall code, there are 12 individual books.
Yes.
For
care settings, at 8.
Yes, so it's Social Law Book 8 is around children and young people.
Yes.
And they all interlink in a way that our legislation often doesn't. So they all interlink with each other.
And it's not the aim of this 8 books of social law books, the children and youth help systems. The title. The aim is every child to give a chance to grow up, and give a chance to grow up. Also family or in another family or in home care or another. And the idea is to give at the same time help the family. During the child is, for example, living in a care setting, the same time parents should get help for himself, because the aim is the child to give a chance to live in their own family. That is the aim. And that's why often the child, a short time in a special care setting, come back in a family, but the situation was not solved, and so the child come back. And another, only as independent with this report, is the youth children are living in prison. 80% of them have experience with different care settings. And that is our challenge in our country. What can we do? We have an aim, all children to give a chance to live in their family, but we suddenly, perhaps we're not able to help the families that they can do that. Or I don't know, but I'm psychologist, and I would say I'm development psychologist, and please excuse me, I would say we have to take the perspective of children, and children cannot wait. Not wait, okay, I am sitting, and now please my father, my mother, take the help, and I wait. No, a child don't wait. A child grow up. And so I think, but this is my opinion, it would be better give a child with neglect experience, for example, enough time to make other experience, and on this way, about this way, to have a new experience. Yes, a living with adults as parent or stepfather or stepmother is a chance for me.
Developing resilience.
Yes.
For
Yes.
later life.
Yes. Yes. Because we have also other experience. Children which have lived long term in a care setting, in the same care setting, not in a challenged care setting. No. These children have more chance, more abilities to find a living in outside, to find education, to find training, and to find a partnership.
I mean, I think there's some. This illustrates some of the differences between your country and our
Yes.
country. Certainly in the philosophy towards residential, what we call residential care homes,
Care homes.
for children. I mean, the number of children in care homes has diminished over
Yes.
the last 20 years considerably. So there's a
Yes.
very small
Yes.
percentage now. It is not regarded conventionally as the best alternative for children to
Yes.
live in
Yeah.
on a long-term basis.
Yes.
But I think that some of your research may be replicated in our
Yeah.
country, actually, in some of the more stable
Yes.
children's homes.
We have the discussion. What is the best way? Oft in the similary or in the einfachen similary.
Yes. It's
Einfach,
simple.
in a simple question, but that is not good to do that, because it's a simple, or it's the best way. We would say ambulance or stationär.
Right. that's in the community or in a residential setting.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
In
That's
a
an
community,
important,
it would be cheaper,
Mm-hmm.
and the residential is just expensive, of
As
course.
Kim mentioned, the reduction in...
Sorry, Chris, can you just briefly say who you are? 'Cause
Sorry,
some people
I'm Chris, one of the teaching staff on the social work programme, and my background is child protection here in Portsmouth, actually. Kim mentioned there's been a reduction in the use of residential care for children in Britain, and there's been a re-emphasis of family and extended family,
Yes.
taking on the role of providing long-term
Yeah.
care options, and indeed there's been changes in
Yes.
legislation to
Yes.
support that.
Yes,
You know, if you think of the special guardianship order particularly,
yes,
you know, was branded specifically to try and give a weight of legislative power and control
Yes,
to
yes.
extended family.
yes. For example, your SURE program is
Sure Start
Sure,
program.
Sure Start program
Yeah,
is
yeah.
a special program that we have overtaken our country.
Well, we've lost it again.
Yes,
With the change of government, it's
the coalition
it's
government.
gone. You know, and yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Were you gonna?
No, please do.
Sorry, I did introduce myself earlier, but I'm Kim Barron. I'm a senior lecturer here at the university as well. I teach social work, childcare social work. I was interested in your statistics about the helpline and how that was used. I wonder whether the research that was undertaken determined how many children who were disclosing to the helpline had said they had already disclosed.
That is not mostly called adults.
Right, adults.
Adults.
Yeah.
They
And
were
the,
mostly adults.
Yes.
Yes.
Had they previously disclosed?
Oh, what?
Had they previously told anybody, or was this the first time they had said they had had this experience?
No. Sometimes it is the first time. Sometimes they were in counseling and
Sure,
therapies
right.
and another helplines, healthcare
Because
systems.
The reason I ask is that in this country there's an issue about what we call listening to children.
Yes.
So what we've heard, what we know from a lot of children who are abused in the care system, is that they have actually told people that they're being abused or have been abused.
Okay.
But that has not been acted on.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
No, I think usually a child would not be say, I have been abuse experience. I think.
I'm not sure that you understood what
Yeah,
Kim
no, perhaps
said.
I-
Kim was saying that one of the issues, one of the problems that's arisen in this country, is that children who have experienced sexual abuse in a care setting
Yes.
have often already told somebody.
Yes. And nobody
And
reacted.
nobody's reacted.
Oh.
Nobody has listened or
Wow.
has done anything about it.
This was also in Germany, and also
Right.
and first
Thank you.
this special situation has all we would say in Gang gesetzt.
Oh, it's set it in motion.
Yes, setting in motion.
Momentum,
Yes.
Yeah.
Often this people has called the online the hotline had also talked about this experience.
Right. Yeah.
She or he has told and nobody has reacted.
Yeah.
Sylvia, you mentioned the Catholic phenomenon that we've experienced as well, but we're also experiencing
Yes.
a new
Yes.
phenomenon at
Yes.
the moment around celebrities
Yes.
that are being investigated. And it's kind of interesting that there is a parallel, I think, in terms of the protected status of the clergy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were deemed to be, your evidence had to be really firm in order to challenge a member of the church. And the same for some of our celebrities. You know, they were untouchable. And that's, I think, allied almost to what you just said. disclosures were made, but they were disbelieved because of the nature of the
Disbelief, yes.
credibility of the the people in power.
One result from this action in our government was another way. We have a great university in Berlin, the Humboldt University, and there is a special department, the Health Department Charity. And there were a special program. All men there which have the judge to take a child, pedophilia.
Oh, paedophile.
Pedophile had the chance to come or to call this in this program, and it was very interesting how many men were coming. And myself had a man in my practice, my counselor practice, but it was another reason. The reason was suicide. But during the talking time, he told me that he had this. What would you say? Den Trieb.
The urge, yes.
The urge to take a children. And he asked me, what can I do to stop that? No? And this was an important reason for this program, to give a help, to give first a thinking about this special problem, and to give a sensitive for the special situations, and to look what can we do. It was the first time, and we were all very, very, very impressed about this. Many. And the program was wieder aufgenommen.
It was recommissioned.
Yes, recommissioned. Yes.
Here in the UK, in the past I've been involved with alternatives to custodial sentences. An alternative to a prison sentence for somebody that has been convicted of a sexual offence against children would be a therapeutic package of care. And I think there's issues with that in the sense of you are forced into a therapeutic setting. But it is an alternative to sentencing at times.
It needs a long time that this man recognized I am responsible for my doing, and that what I do is a criminal act. That need time, and often.
That's at the individual level, but it was interesting. You had a political party that was actually advocating for a legalisation.
Yes, it was crazy.
So is there I need to address some cultural values and norms as well.
I think this was the reason why this party on Sunday, on our national election, has lot of
lost a lot
votes. I think.
Yeah. I think.
You think, no? Also, yes. I think that
Were
was.
they allied to that set then?
This is quite a complicated story, but this is from the late 70s and early 80s, and the Green Party was made up originally out of a range of different groups
of
on the left.
Yeah.
It was a special group.
Yeah. And basically there's similar developments in this country as well, but they didn't get attached to a political party in the same way.
Yes.
Okay.
So it was the equivalent. Do you remember the paedophile information exchange? So it was the equivalent kind of thing, where it was as if the paedophile information exchange had persuaded a subcommittee in a mainstream political party to adopt a position supporting them in some kind of principle. And that's basically what happened with the Greens. And then this was kind of just forgotten and then it was raised
Yes.
during the election, and the Greens went from about 15% to about 9%.
Eight.
Yeah. So they suffered significantly for the foolishness, really. But
Did you look? Wow.
sorry.
Did you look about our...
Oh yes, no, I'm
Thank
really
you.
interested in
Thank
German.
you for your interest.
I'm really interested in German politics. I'm John Crossland. I'm a senior lecturer in adult social care, so this is not my field at all. But there are some things that have really interested me about this. So one of the things that we do know in this country is the impact of crises of this type,
Yes.
when suddenly something emerges into the public realm and causes a huge reaction. And one of the things in social work that we're quite used to in this country is that social work often gets the blame when some things go wrong. Not necessarily always this particular type of thing, but my question here is, this was clearly driven by these revelations about the church, about the Catholic Church in particular, and these schools. But within the social law book, the 8th book, there are procedures, that there are rules and regulations about protecting children. And I'd just be quite interested to know your opinion on what are they and how well do they work. So who has the primary responsibility? Is it the local council? Or is it the health service? Who has the primary responsibility? In the way that in this country, it is very definitely the local councils and the Kommune, the local council, and social work as a profession has the lead role in protecting children from all forms of abuse. But obviously today we're talking about child sexual abuse as well. So is it? I don't know the 8th book.
It's
so.
a clear legal
Okay,
case.
I will give the question on my students of Germany. She is in the end of her studies, and I think she will be able to give a great
Could you
answer.
could you two help us with that? It would be interesting for us to
I can
hear
give
that.
I can give the
yeah.
answer, yes, of
Yeah,
course, but
yeah.
I think please.
Yes, I don't really know it. Yes, you want to know what is in the 8th.
So in the 8th book, in the 8th social law book, which organisation has the main responsibility for
Yes.
protecting
Yeah.
children?
Yes.
So which organisation?
Like the education, for
Mhm.
example, in
Yeah.
our system, the local or private education system has a big chance.
So the education system.
Yes, because the teacher and the head teacher, another in the education school system. School system include kindergarten, yes.
Yeah.
They have a lot of Weiterbildung.
Further training.
Yes, further training.
Additional training.
And we have a new program. What is to do if you have a thinking that could be and
So if you suspect
yes, the
abuse.
teacher and the nurse, and this is the first person for our children. Really. That's why we give a special teaching in our university for this task.
Right.
And the government has given a lot of money to trainee. Secondary training. Weiterbildung.
Yeah. It's kind of continuous professional development.
Yeah.
So further training. So
Further
additional
training.
Yeah.
Further.
Or additional training.
Okay. Additional training. Okay. For additional training. And that is the really important person there. The second, this person, teacher, nurse, another, mostly can go in a special counselor setting. For example, we have in Berlin special counselor places for sexual abuse, for victims and for perpetrators. And mostly they contact, and then from these places come.
So the teacher or the nurse
Yes.
from the school
Yes.
would make the contact
Yes.
with the
Yes.
special
Yes.
counselling
Yes.
service.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Right.
The counselor service can be public and
Mhm.
can be private.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Another way.
But the money to pay for it
Yes.
would come from the
Another
government.
way,
Isn't it?
that was also a reason 2 years before, we had a lot of neglect.
Neglect,
Neglect. And often also with dying. And
What with children who died?
Yes.
Right.
yes, and that's why a reason also the government has reacted, and we have found out that often in this family where a professional from health center or health department, a professional from youth department, a professional from education department, from job department, etc.
Yeah.
Very different professionals were working in this family, and nobody from this have connected with them. And that
That's a familiar message.
yes,
Right.
and
It's a very top quality here.
that's why this program from from our government, we have a big campaign for campaign for network.
Right.
And so, for context from children, the professional from health center have to connect and the youth center, and to say formally, usually at first time the professional from health center is coming in the family and can see what is there, and can give an information to the youth center and say, please give help. Please. And now we have a lot of new kinds of helping, and very different kinds of helping.
I think we had that developed probably, when did Labour come in? 8, 9?
No,
97.
97.
97.
No, 97.
When Labour came in, they started this delivery to all families,
Yes.
of the Sure Start system, which was starting to build foundation stones of interprofessional working, networking, and a delivery of a service to all families. We're losing that more and more, and the kind of range of services that were being developed for that decade, for that 10 years, was quite phenomenal. You had lots of layers of early years provision being developed.
Yeah.
But we're in that time of financial austerity, and a lot of those organisations have withered and died.
That is a great problem for adult. We have founded a new position like case manager, but not for children. For case manager for job and house and finance and other things.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please do.
It's a
Please.
different situation.
Please.
I was reading the newspaper today.
Can you say?
Oh, sorry, I'm Louise. I'm just started the MSc in social work. I was in the lecture this morning.
Ah, yes, okay.
Yeah. In the newspaper today, there was a case where a 12-year-old abused a 12-year-old boy sexually abused a 6-year-old girl.
Yes.
And
the age from the girl?
6.
6. Okay.
And I was just wondering, when you said before that when the paedophile came to you and you said he asked you how to fight the urge, if that perpetrator was a child, how would you deal with that situation?
Oh yes,
Have you had it before?
Yes, that is a special situation. We have founded a special care, home care, care setting for these boys. And no, the boy is not a perpetrator because the age of perpetrator is 14 in Germany, but then we have a special law, the youth law. Okay.
10 here.
Please?
It's
10, the age 10 here.
10 years?
10 years.
Criminal
Yeah,
responsibility.
10 Really?
The age of criminal responsibility
Yeah.
is 10.
10 years? That is.
So, hence being 12.
That's
Then he would be a perpetrator,
He would have.
Yeah.
He would,
and he would go
well,
in the
potentially
prison.
if he was
But he
prosecuted.
didn't. He didn't get any sort of punishment. They had to pay. I was reading today. The boy had to pay the little girl £300 for compensation. And yeah, it's
One
ridiculous.
police officers.
And he had to work with a what was it? I was reading a review this morning, wasn't I? So, a team. What was it?
Sexual behaviours team.
Yeah.
Something like a youth team as
Well, that
well
sounds
for
good.
like
Yeah,
a,
that
That's the sort of treatment programme.
for a year.
What if that diverted from the criminal justice system?
It's a better way forward, isn't it? Yeah.
Much better
But
way
apparently in court the
But
little
he's probably
boy.
still got a record.
Yeah, in
Realise.
court the boy said, "I don't care what the girl, how this has affected the girl." They were saying, but yeah, he didn't
So
get
you
any
did go
sort.
to court. Okay.
Yeah, they went to court, but that was £300. I was like,
That is very great problem. Today in the morning, in your paper, there was a new word for me. Biopsycho,
Psycho
social and spiritual perspective. we in German have a psycho social
Social.
perspective. The spiritual is not, but I think that is also to berücksichtigen,
To take into account.
to take in account this different perspective or four perspective. Often these boys or other, this boy can be a pedophile, but he don't be a pedophile. It's not sure what is the kind. That's why it is necessary to give a special perspective help. Often the boy, I think the boy perhaps has emotional stress experience. And as psychologists, we say the additional main treatment, je höher die psychische Belastung, also many more.
The higher the psychological
Yes.
Belastung.
Stress. Stress.
Yeah, belastung is like the weight on you, isn't it?
Yes,
So yeah.
yes.
So the burden.
Burden.
The higher the psychological burden.
Yes, and thank you. And often I think that emotional stress, neglect, for example, or other abuse, physical abuse, and then the predisposition for perhaps, I don't know, and then can be such reaction. And that's why I would say he's a boy, need a special care setting. And in Germany we have two special care settings, only in Berlin, not in other countries. But
In other regions.
yes,
Yeah.
but we need more.
There's a number of projects in Britain.
Yes.
I think the main one is called the AIM project, but
Yes.
it's for working with young persons with sexually
Yeah.
problematic
Yes,
behaviour.
yes,
You know, so and Portsmouth actually has that program as well.
yes.
You know, so there is who's delivering the claims. Well, the half was involved at one point. I'm sure she was.
Well, we know.
Yeah, I'm sure she
Well,
was
it
at
was,
one point.
when I was involved with it, it was the NSPCC.
No,
Then it went from
it's
the
come back in-house.
NSPCC.
And what has happened with this boy and what has happened with the girl?
The boy got charged £300 and is working with, like I said,
Really?
I can't remember what team it was. Yeah,
Pocket money, isn't it?
team.
Yeah, that'll be the
Yeah,
parents
for
paying that.
compensation.
Yeah, yes,
apparently.
I understand. What?
And he has to work with a team for a year, but apart
Only a year.
yeah. Where's my newspaper? Oh,
This
that's
is
in the
no
other
balance.
room.
That is no balance because
Can I
12
just
years.
check something? Which newspaper was it?
Oh, I picked it up on the train.
The Metro.
Metro, yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
I mean, you do need to be slightly
Yeah.
wary.
Yeah, of
You
course,
know,
yeah.
I think-
that might be not
Yeah.
as factual.
One
as-
of
it's
the
worth
things that,
checking out in other
Yeah.
sources.
a difference between the two countries. In Germany, there are tabloid newspapers, so the Boulevardzeitung.
Yes, okay.
But the tabloid
Okay.
newspapers in this country
Okay,
make the tabloid newspapers in Germany look tame.
yes. Okay,
Um,
okay.
They can be really vicious. They can focus in very unhelpful ways. And they often, when you talked about when there are cases of neglect where a child dies, we've had 2 of those recently in this country. And the tabloid press kind of lead the pack in attacking social workers. So a few
Yes.
years ago there was one
in German also.
there was one famous case where they actually published the
Yes.
names and addresses
Yes,
of the social
yes,
workers.
yes.
Has that happened in Germany
Yes,
as well?
also.
Ah, I wasn't aware of that. That's
Mm.
interesting.
They said the reason why they did put him in, I don't know, a
In
home
prison.
in prison
Mm.
was because they didn't want him to be influenced by more experienced criminals. This is what the newspaper
But the
says,
surprise with that case is that he has been dealt with as a child,
He has been,
essentially,
Yeah.
rather than
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
a
As
criminal.
and
He will have a criminal record.
He will have a criminal
Yeah,
record,
but
we
his
know that.
treatment is more indicative of a sort of care perspective rather
I
than
might be wrong, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
read through it today. But yeah.
There's a real bizarrity in Britain
Okay.
that until about 3 years ago in Scotland, the age of criminal intent was 8. And in Britain, just over the border, in
Yes,
England,
yes.
it was 10. And Scotland have reviewed theirs, and their age is now 12. So we've got a variability, literally across the border, of 12 in Scotland and 10 in England at the moment, and Wales and Ireland. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
But then you've also got to consider that a child who abuses could also be a victim of abuse themselves.
Yeah.
It's more probable.
Yeah, and they could just be copying behaviour that they think is normal.
That is that's a special problem because I'm a development psychologist, and in this age, a child is not able to look in the past, look in the present, and look in the future, and all 3 perspectives take together. That cannot be a child with 12 years. It is beginning. We would see the ability to reflect. The ability to reflect. That is this ability to take 3 times together. To take that cannot be. And if a 12 years old child give 300 pounds, yes.
Well, his parents.
Okay, 300 pounds. This boy has never worked, has never get money. From where has get money? And so the relation to this money and to this act is no path. I've written a new model. I hope in next year it will be published. The path model. The path model. It means in all our help thinking and our practice, we have to berücksichtigen,
Take into account.
The path situation. It must a path passend harmony, but not harmony.
Must fit together.
Yes.
Zusammenpassen.
And that is not passed.
That's interesting.
But like you said, the newspaper might not be.
It would be worth checking it out.
Can I just
Another
can I just say we have to leave the room at 1:45.
Okay.
So we do need to be winding up. So can I ask people to make their final
Well,
comments or questions? Yeah.
It's a very well. It could be a quick one or it could be a long one. But I think that what I'm interested about is that we talk about children as vulnerable, in particular in these settings.
Yes, vulnerable.
But we assume that we talk about them generally,
Yes.
as if they all have the same degree of vulnerability. And I'm not sure that society
Yes.
and professionals do believe that.
Yes.
An example in the UK, a recent example, is where children around 12, 13 years of age in residential care, in a children's care home, were subject to organised sexual abuse, and they were leaving the residential establishment, being abused, part of a sort of prostitution ring and things like that. And a number of professionals were aware of this, but their professional judgment was that these children were making, I'll use the term and then you can try and translate it, they were making a lifestyle choice. I don't know whether that makes any sense in translation. The point I'm trying to make is that I think society and professionals have different perspectives of vulnerability.
Of course.
And that drives our notion of how to protect or if protection is required, and it drives what we hear in terms of what the children and young people are saying. Does that make any sense?
It is our challenges to give understanding the police, to politicians.
It's
It was
about-
more than politicians.
It's not
it
just
was-
politicians, it's professional social workers, it's police
Police.
officers,
Yes.
it's teachers.
Yes.
This adolescent age group are often quite difficult to manage and not an attractive group to professionals. And therefore their vulnerability may be and has been interpreted as much lower than perhaps younger children. Does that make any sense?
It does, and
It's a
it's
very
reflected
big
in
professional
care
challenge.
stats.
Yes.
It's a major professional challenge for us.
It's reflected in care statistics.
Yes.
Something like 80% of our care applications relate to under fives.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the majority of our court applications to protect a child relate to under fives.
They
And once they
improve
get beyond,
significantly with age,
They-
don't
they
they?
do.
oh, absolutely,
So-
and once you get into teenage years, 13, they're non-existent.
So I suppose my point
And if they're
is
part of a sibling group sometimes.
that there are issues around professional values here in interpreting risk and the need for protection. And I think that, I'll leave it at that. I think there's some serious challenges for us. It's not just to politicians, but I think it's ourselves,
Yes, of course.
professionals
Yes.
who are working with what I would call vulnerable
But-
young people.
But that I hope to do some through my teaching. I hope that is my reason why I'm a teacher.
Yeah, same
course.
here. Yeah, I agree with that.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Of
Yeah.
Okay, I think we need to bring this to a close, but first of all, can I just thank you so much for a really, really interesting contribution. I found that fascinating. So maybe you can join me in a round of applause.
Thank you.
Interestingly, in Germany, people would do this.
Okay. Yes.
Well, we're allowed to start heckling.
Yes.
It would be interpreted differently.
Okay. Now I think. Thank you. And,